Welcome to CE Ag Talks, the video series from CE Ag World, a media site devoted to the business of growing food undercover, including greenhouse produce, vertical farms, and outdoor protected crops. Today we're welcoming Nona Yehia, co-founder of Vertical Harvest Farms, an urban hydroponic grower with a mission to provide meaningful careers for people who have been historically underserved. The company's second farm in Maine is slated to open here in a few weeks, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Nona, thank you for joining us.
I'm so happy to be here. Hi, Dana.
So to begin, you've been operating your vertical farm in Jackson Hole, Wyoming for nearly a decade. What made you decide to open a new farm in Maine?
It's interesting to understand what impelled us to open the farm in Wyoming, to understand why we wanted to replicate in Maine. So I am actually an architect by trade. And I was deeply interested in what were key success factors in civic infrastructure, in what makes communities tick. Where does the fabric and the infrastructure of communities support people, and where do they leave people behind? And along that journey and in my career as a designer, I really started to understand that food was the strongest connection to human and environmental health. And so that's really what led me to become a vertical farmer and to start on a mission to see if we could extend the growing season and bolster the local food economy at scale for communities that don't have access to year-round production. So I've lived in Michigan, I've lived in New York, I now live in Wyoming, and all of them import most of their food. So in Jackson, we said, let's design a farm that can extend the growing season, and then what other problems can we solve? And for me and for the team, this was an effort to say, could a farm become a critical piece of civic infrastructure? And could it, at scale, solve some of the problems that we see in our communities, not only with providing healthy, nutritious food, but creating a climate resilient response to that? What are some of the public health issues that we could solve? What about economic resiliency of creating an asset like a vertical farm? And then finally, what about social justice issues? Could we solve a problem that most businesses undergo when opening up their doors, and also solve a problem of untapped, overlooked people with barriers to entry to employment? So, that's where Vertical Harvest's mission became to grow food and futures. And I think it's appropriate for me to give a little tribute to Dixon Despommier, who is the godfather of vertical farming, or, I think one of the early pioneers of it. I had the amazing chance of meeting him when we were starting out with Vertical Harvest. And he said, Nona, I love what you're doing, obviously. And he said, imagine if you pull this off in Jackson at 3 stories. What could you do at 10 stories? What could you do at 100 stories? You could feed cities. And so we always had it in our mind that we wanted to scale and replicate, but we also knew that we needed to know how to do that. And we wanted to do that responsibly. So we knew we had to operate, learn, especially with the innovative technology that we're using, the innovative workforce, to make the big mistakes in a small farm and then be ready to scale. And we found some really incredible partners in Maine, primarily the municipality there, the economic development director, Dan Stevenson at the time. He understood that kind of, that 4-pronged approach of Vertical Harvest, and he was looking for a private sector business to anchor their downtown development of a parking structure. And he fell in love with Vertical Harvest, and we fell in love with Westbrook, Maine, and the rest is history.
Is there anything else you would like our audience to know?
I think that in this time in the industry, what I'd like to share is gratitude. We have had a lot of stakeholders that have helped us along this journey, and it has been a long one. Starting in Wyoming and in Jackson, understanding that, the scale of that lends itself to a farm that is an incubator, and there's huge value not only at a community level, but to the business of learning, right? And having a farm that you're able to operate and invest commercially in the community, but also to look forward, as we talked about, to learn how to scale and how to replicate. And then I'm really grateful to the Maine community for being so excited for us to operate and to be of the community. We spent a lot of time listening to the needs of the community. And Maine and Wyoming share a lot of attributes in that they're both close knit. They both like to solve their own problems, and they like to get things done in innovative ways, and to have those contexts as we put up our first 2-scale farm on the heels of all the knowledge that we cultivated in Jackson. I'm just truly grateful for the journey and for the opportunity to move the industry forward in this way and in a very community-minded way. And thank you for the work that you do, Dana, and getting the story out there. And I think that talking and communicating right now is the most important thing businesses like Vertical Harvest can do. And we're excited to be a part of the conversation.